Hello, my name is Todd Rapp, and I work with ICS, the firm that is consulting with the Lake Park Audubon School District to conduct a facilities assessment and determine what investments may be needed in the future to improve the schools that local children attend. As part of this assessment, we conducted an online survey of residents and reported those results to the board on December 18, 2020. This video is to provide those results to the broader community who may not have been able to watch that board meeting back in December. Now, the survey was conducted online and was open for any community member who wanted to complete it. Staff and parents of the school district were invited via email, and the entire community was invited both through the local newspaper and on social media. As you can see, 416 people began the survey, and 71% of those completed it, with an average time of less than 10 minutes. I'd encourage anybody who's watching this video who didn't get a chance to complete the survey to look for other opportunities to provide input into the school district. These surveys are relatively short, and they're very helpful in informing the school district as to what direction they should be going. So when we look at the people who actually completed all the questions in the survey, it was dominated by parents and staff. And that's not surprising in an online survey. Typically, a majority of respondents will come from those groups because they're involved in the school district on a day-to-day basis. However, we did receive responses from the general public and from parents of inbound students. That is, those students who don't live within the school district, but do attend the school district using Minnesota's open enrollment law. Now, these parents would not pay additional taxes if, for example, the school district went forward with the bond referendum later this year. But it's still interesting to get those results. As you can see, the sample that we ended up getting responses from is probably pretty typical, as if we had a community meeting in the gymnasium. This is probably who would have shown up and the input we would have received. So one of the questions that we ask in these surveys is, how is the district doing? What you see here is the results of each of those three groups broken down separately based on 4 criteria: quality of education, that people get a good value for the investment they make in schools, the board and administration is trusted to do what's right for students, and whether or not the district is doing a good job communicating. The percentages shown include, first, those overall giving it a positive rating, and second, those giving the district a strongly positive rating. For example, among parents and staff, 81% give the district a positive rating for quality of education, 37% give it strongly positive ratings. I highlighted one figure here, and that is among the general public. Only 17% say the school district is doing a good job of communicating. Now, on one hand, members of the general public aren't directly involved in the school district on a day-to-day basis. Nonetheless, that's an important percentage to keep an eye on, because the more the general public is informed of what's happening at the school district, and the more engaged they feel, the better. And the school board has already been talking about ways of addressing that issue. Now, 2 other questions about how the district is doing. First, whether or not by providing high-quality schools, we help property values and we attract new residents and businesses. And second, whether or not people would support a tax increase to protect that investment. You'll notice here that parents and staff and the general public generally agree on the question of whether the high-quality schools are helping property values and attract new residents and businesses. But they disagree at this point as to whether or not a tax increase should be used to protect that investment and make further investment in schools. I want to highlight there the percentage of people saying they're not sure about that second part. That's a very high percentage for a school district. And it's one of the things that you'll notice as we go through the remaining slides, the percentage of people who say not sure. Those are people who are still learning about the issues involved here, such as what investments need to be made, and even what the tax impact of that will be. And those numbers should go down if the school district decides to go forward with the referendum. In terms of the quality of the school buildings, Most of the people I've talked to who work for the district believe the Lake Park Secondary Building is in very good shape, but the Audubon Elementary Building is in need of some significant investments. Parents and staff, the general public, and even inbound parents all agree with that assessment, that the Lake Park Secondary Building is in better shape than the Audubon Elementary Building. And that's one of the reasons why the district has looked more carefully at investments that may need to be made in the Audubon Elementary School. Now, in terms of the priorities that the district should be looking at, number 1 and number 2 on the list were health and safety and improving educational spaces. Once again, we're showing here the percentage of people who said that those investments would be important or very important. And when over half of parents and staff say that health and safety is a very important investment, that's a pretty good sign that there's strong support out there for improvements in the school. But notice there's quite a division when it comes to the issue of whether more parking is needed in Audubon Elementary School. Now, one reason for that is certainly that parents and staff have more exposure to the parking situation there. So it's going to be important for the district to expand their communication to the general public about the need to improve parking and maybe even drop off and pick up areas if they expect the general public to support a tax increase for that. The school district is exploring whether it makes sense to move the educational model to include a middle school, which many school districts around the state currently use. As you can tell from the results here, parents and staff are stronger supporters than the general public. But part of the reason may be is that the discussion is just beginning, and communication from the school district on the importance of a middle school model is just starting. The support among the general public isn't bad, 39% in support, 34% not, but 27% saying that they're not sure. Once again, a key theme from this survey was that there's a need to get more information out before the district considers going forward for a referendum. We posed 2 hypothetical questions that might be used if the school district were to move forward with a referendum. The first question would make the improvements necessary to turn the elementary school into a pre-kindergarten through 5th grade building and move the 6th graders to the secondary school so a middle school model could be created to go along with the high school education going on in that building. Most of the investments would need to be made in the elementary school, which needs substantial improvements in health, safety, and classroom quality. But it would add 3 new classrooms to the secondary school in Lake Park to take care of those middle school students. The overall cost of this plan would be $21.9 million, and the plan would meet all of the Minnesota Department of Education standards for quality and healthy education. As you'll note, the support for this plan is higher among parents and staff right now than it is the general public. Although, to be fair, that's true in almost every community around the state of Minnesota. Since this discussion is just beginning within the Lake Park Audubon communities, it's not surprising that a quarter of respondents were still unsure whether they'd support question 1. But when we asked a follow-up question, whether or not this seemed like a good value, if the average tax increase would be $9 per month on the owner of a typically sized home in this area, you'll notice that support is higher among parents and staff, 65% compared to the 53% who said they would support the plan overall, and among the general public, where 39% said it was a good value, as opposed to just 29% having initial support for the plan. So why do we ask both questions on a survey? The first question really addresses the size and scope of the plan. The second question addresses whether taxpayers believe they'll be getting good value for their investment. 2 different questions, and when we combine the 2, they really give us an understanding of what information the residents want to learn more about in order to decide if they can support or oppose the plan. Now, we also asked about a second question, and that is for a $1.35 million investment that would improve career and technical education that is education for those students who may not be considering a four-year degree after high school, but rather are looking for career training, along with improving the collaborative spaces in the secondary school for different models of learning. The results seem very similar to the results we've seen in question 1. First of all, because a high percentage of people are still unsure. Secondly, because people were more positive about the plan once they heard of the low tax impact for those investments, in this case, an average of 59 cents per month, than they were when they heard of the initial parts of the plan. Now, there are 3 questions that we ask about how well the school district is doing in their efforts to find the right plan. First is, are they trying to find a plan that benefits students and staff? Second, a plan that's fair to local taxpayers. And third, that the board's including the community in discussions. You'll note in our responses here the very high percentage of people who aren't sure. This is not surprising in any way, because the board is just beginning public discussions about the elements of the plan. Several months from now, we would hope to see a lower percentage of people answering they're not sure, and either deciding that the board has been doing a good job in this way or not doing a good job. Right now, the responses to these survey questions are pretty good when you consider that the discussion is just starting. But here's why this is so important. If a community member believes that the board is accomplishing all 3 goals, benefiting students and staff, being fair to taxpayers, and involving the community, they are far more likely to support the referendum questions. Of the 30% who completed these surveys and agreed the board was accomplishing all 3 goals, 77% said they'd support question 1, and 70% said they'd support question 2. Local residents want to be part of the decision-making process, and they want to see a plan that will improve education for students, help our staff teach better, and also be fair to taxpayers. And the school district has adopted a communications plan to reach out more broadly to the community over this next several months to get the input necessary to develop the best plan. The last thing we tested was preferred sources of information. And it's interesting to note that parents and staff and inbound parents pick the same ways to receive information from the district, primarily through email and electronic newsletters. But among members of the general public who are not as connected to the school on a day-to-day basis, they prefer local newspapers and social media. It will be important for the school district to use all of these sources of information in order to get the best feedback from the community. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the Lake Park Audubon's facilities planning and the community survey that we conducted to learn more from our residents. If you need more information, please go to the website lpapavetheway.com or feel free to call the district office at 218-325-0754.